Welcome to this episode of FESPA Sustainability Spotlight video series. I think we're all aware that sustainability matters and driving change to reduce negative environmental and social impact is now an essential consideration for us all. Our aim in these videos is to provide informative and actionable advice to build sustainability best practice. And I'm absolutely delighted today to be joined by Marshall Atkinson from Atkinson Consulting to talk about the printed apparel sector, garment decoration, and what kind of myths and challenges exist within the apparel industry. I'm going to let Marshall introduce himself because he can do it way better than I can. But the one thing I know for sure is that here we have a guest who has been an owner, producer, a marketeer, a consultant who has, forgive me, Marshall, long arms in the garment decoration business. So, Marshall, over to you for a quick intro, please.
Well, thanks, Graham. It's such a pleasure to be here today, and I really appreciate your invitation to speak about something that I'm actually kind of passionate about. So I'm a consultant, but previous to that, I ran some rather large apparel decorating facilities. We certainly weren't the biggest in the world, but we were printing about 1 million shirts a month, so that's pretty good, right? And it's sustainability is something I got interested in not forever ago, but quite a bit ago, and mainly because it was the hook that I use to lower costs. And so that's how I got attracted to it. There's a lot of parallels between Lean Six Sigma and sustainability. Everything's about reducing waste. So that's kind of why I got into doing it. And once you get in and it starts making sense, then everything just kind of falls into place. So I have championed 2 shops that I've run, 2 different businesses that I work for, into getting becoming certified sustainable screen printers through the Sustainable Green Printing Partnership, which was championed by the former SGIA. Now it's Printing United, right? But yep. So that's kind of where I got into that, and that was my introduction to the always fabulous Marcy Kinter, and who is on the academy with us. So it's just that's kind of how I got into that a while ago, right? And so I'm really happy to talk about that today, and because I think there's a lot of misconceptions about sustainability, and it's really good to talk about things and bring it out in the open and debate and talk about stuff. We might not see eye to eye. We probably do on most things, but I think it's going to be really kind of fun to kind of get into it. So let's begin.
All right, Marshall, thank you. So yeah, the topic we're going to look at today is what top sustainability myths exist in the decorated apparel industry. I mean, just to kick off from my side, when I go out and buy t-shirts these days, I tend to look for organic cotton because I know that the quality of organic farming is better for soil protection and those kind of things. However, when you look at a global scale, the percentage of organic cotton currently in the market accounts for less than 1% of produced product. It may be better that I consider synthetic fiber, and it depends whether you're looking at the effect on natural systems or whether or not you're considering things like carbon footprint. Complex topic, lots and lots to talk about. So, and I suppose cost-wise, Marshall, everyone wants to reduce their energy bill right now, don't they? Because we're all paying. Right. Well, certainly we in Europe are really under the cosh of energy costs right now, and I think the best kilowatt hour is the one you don't use, right? So sure. I'd love to know from your point of view what you consider to be the top myths that we need to be aware of so that we can respond to them in a kind of productive manner.
Sure. Well, for me, the number one myth is that sustainability costs you money, right? That it's too expensive, that we can't do it, that we're going to have to change or buy or whatever, right? We're going to be doing some things. And you hear a lot of this from the accounting folks in the business where it's just going to cost us money. So we're not interested in that, right?
Yeah.
So I can tell you from my perspective that starting with a sustainability program, you of course want to start with your why. Why are you doing it, right? Are you doing it because it's the right thing to do? Are you doing it to save money? Like, are you doing it because your customers demand it, or there's a government regulation that's coming down the pike, or whatever? What is the why, I think, that you're interested in this? And I think when you kind of line that up with the myth that it's expensive, that's why a lot of people don't really get going, okay? Yeah. But what I can tell you is that once you start looking at sustainability, sustainability is all about the 3 R's. And Graham, here is my chance to talk like a pirate, right? So I've talked about this before, and the 3 R's, you can't just say the 3 R's, you have to say the 3 R's like a pirate, right? Yeah. And it's reduce, reuse, recycle. Those are the 3 R's, right? So we start thinking about the 3 R's. This is how we start saving money, right? So we can reduce consumption, right? How do we reduce consumption? Well, the first thing is that you start looking at your processes. And one of the things I would champion is just with a 1-word question, which is why. Why are we doing the things that we do? And I can tell you, it doesn't matter what type of printer you are. You're a t-shirt printer, you're an offset printer, you're a do litho, whatever. A lot of the reasons why we chose whatever we're doing is because somebody 20 years ago or 10 years ago or last year ago made a decision, okay? But that doesn't make it relevant now, right? So we started using this ink, we started using this solvent, we started using this technique or procedure. We don't know why we're doing it. We just keep doing the same thing. So if you start thinking about why we're doing whatever we're doing, and then we ask the simple question, why, is there a better way out there? I can tell you right now, with new techniques, methodologies, processes, there may be something out there that's significantly better than the way that you're doing it now, whatever that is, okay? But a lot of times we don't start asking that question, so we're kind of stuck. We're in a rut. We've got that confirmation bias going where we're only thinking about the one way that we're doing it, right? And we started using this one particular ink or one particular substrate or one particular whatever, and we've never challenged that there's a better way out there, just because we're so focused on getting orders out the door. That's the reality for most shops.
Yeah,
right?
and I think if you're used to running plastisol, because plastisol is very straightforward to work with, and is you know, that's an understandable way of doing things. If you've got an ink kitchen full of color matches, if you're considering a move towards PVC free ink, for example, you kind of can get stuck in the whole inventory question, can't you? And I think
there's a whole myth about plastisol isn't ecologically friendly. That's a myth, right? Plastisol, if you ever look at the ingredients of a water-based ink, it's chock full of stuff that's harmful, right? It requires more energy. It requires a lot more stuff. Plastisol just sits there, right? It has to be heated to 320 or whatever, 300, depending on the ink, right? 360, 70, for some low cure stuff, right? But you can just take it right out of the screen and put it right back in the bucket and use it a year from now. Water-based ink, for example, has a lot more waste. right? So it's just one of these things where, why do we assume that it's bad, right? So what are we doing, right? Also, plastisol you can use for your squeegees and flood bars. You can use a process called bioremediation, which is a gigantic word.
Yeah.
These are microbes that the oil industry uses to eat oil spills in the ocean, right? We have this right now for plastisol, because plastisol is basically a petroleum product, and it eats the ink. So the byproduct is CO2 and water. So I had bioremediation squeegee cleaners instead of using really harmful petroleum naphtha cleaning, okay, which is super common. It's like the brake cleaner station you see in some shops. We use bioremediation that allows us to clean our parts, but there's no VOCs. So you start thinking about that stands for volatile organic compounds, by the way. So if we want to start asking why are we doing, what are we doing, why are we using something? The myth here is that when we switch or what we're doing, it's going to be more expensive. But we start looking at how we're using our product, what are we doing? For example, screen printing on a t-shirt, right? With water-based ink, you typically have to double stroke every color, okay? That's twice the time, twice the ink. Plastisol, you can use a one-stroke approach to get a really super bright, opaque looking print, okay? We're only using one stroke, which means that we're using half the ink and half the time, so we're more effective with our day, okay? So but it's like one of these things where I want you to think about your process, right? So it's fine if you're a water-based printer, totally cool, right? But look at your wastage, look at what you're doing, look at your ink lab, your screens, your screen, EOM, all that kind of stuff. How can you get better performance out of what you're doing? That's what sustainability is. Sustainability, more than anything, is you trying to be effective. And we can talk about being efficient. Efficient to me is the wrong word for sustainability. I like to use the word effective. You can be really super efficient printing the wrong thing or the wrong color or whatever, and you really made a lot of mistakes quickly, right? Being effective is being, we're doing things properly with the right amount of time, and we have the outcome that we want. That's being effective, right? Being effective is always more sustainable, right? Because we achieved our desired result with the quality that we wanted with the minimal amount of time. That's being effective. That 100% is sustainability in a nutshell, okay? And guess what? It's more profitable, right? So if you use the correct everything, even if that consumable, even if your process requires you to invest a little money, okay, at the end of the day, your yield, okay, is higher because we're doing things correctly. We're being effective with our time. So instead of, I don't know, 10 jobs a day, you're getting 15 jobs a day. You know what that means? That means your cost per imprint is lower because we took all that, we printed it with the same day, the same time, with the same shift. Our cost per imprint drops. Even if we have to use more expensive ingredients, at the end of the day, we produce more. That way our cost per production goes down. There's where the money is, right? And so I think a big problem we have sometimes is that the accountants jump in here and they want us to use the lowest cost whatever, right? And they're not thinking about the outcome much because they're accountants and not printers, and they don't know, right? So we have to do a really good job of explaining and training and showing the magic. We have to peel the curtain back. How do we do things? This makes you make better decisions.
Revealing the cost of quality.
Yeah, right? Well, Lean Six Sigma, what is the cost of poor quality? That's actual term, right? Yeah. So the cost of poor quality, COPQ, is something that you measure, right? So what is that, right? So anybody who's done any Lean Six Sigma knows what that is, right? So so we really have to focus on the end result and ask why. So that's one of the biggest myths, I think, is that it's expensive, right?
Yeah.
The other myth, I think, is that it's really hard to do, right? And I think, you know, do you know how you ever heard this term? How do you eat an elephant? You know, one bite at a time, right?
Right. Yeah.
I think a lot of people start off with the fact that they can't be the champion right off the bat, right? That it's like they're not interested in the journey. They want instant success. Okay. Sustainability is continuous improvement at its best, right? If
Yeah.
we change one thing a week, one tiny little thing a week, right? We change 52 things a year. If you have every department in your shop, in your company, doesn't matter what you print or whatever, right? Think about it. Every single department you have, how many departments does the company have? Let's just say 10, right? If every department changes one thing a week, we just change 520 things a year. Don't you think you'll do much better?
Even the tiny changes,
Tiny changes
over time just mount up, don't they? I was in a transfer printing facility in Denmark late last year, and they'd dropped the wattage of their lighting system by 5%. They were making these very small adjustments,
yeah.
But the incremental benefit over several years has been enormously valuable to them, in that they're kind of moving, they're now using heat pump energy, wind energy, solar energy. They are committed to the long game, and I think that's really important here, isn't it? And in my own experience, Marshall, of working towards ISO 20121, FESPA, and carbon footprinting our headquarters, it has been a slow and hard grind.
But it's difficult. But here's the thing. Throw out lots of quotes here. A journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? You got to start, right? The hardest thing with anything is starting. And I think, the big myth is that, we need instant success, right? To me, what you need is just to start, and you're going to fail. You're going to stub your toe. You're not going to do it right. And you're going to learn and learn and learn and learn. And eventually there's payoff, right? So again, that's the reason we start with why, because you need, as a business, as an organization, you need to have people with this as part of their job, right? If you give somebody who's really busy another thing to do, they're not going to do it, right? They've already got a full plate. They're not, like, you just add one more thing to them, they're not going to do that. So what they need is, you carve out time for people. You need to champion it. You need to have people with all levels of your business want to do it and see the value in it, and have enough time and focus to start thinking about things. And if you were to say, hey, I want you to spend 30 minutes a week, right? 30 minutes a week. We goof off on Facebook more than that, right? We spend 30 minutes a week thinking about how you can change one thing with what you do, right? At the end of the year, if everybody's working on that, you're going to have a groundswell of some really awesome things, hopefully, right? But it has to be what things make sense for them. And also, what I'll tell you is that this cannot be a top-down thing, because somebody barking orders about, hey, we need to be green, go do something. Nothing's going to get done, and you're not going to get much progress, right? So it really needs to be from the ground up. What we need is the lowest level employee needs to be thinking about how they can improve with what they do, And just one little idea, right? So there's a fabulous book that our friend Richard Greaves champions all the time by Paul Akers. It's called 2 Second Lean. And what Mr. Akers talks about in the book is 100% sustainability, right? Which is just about making things better, improving things, reducing waste, saving time, all that stuff. That is all sustainability, right? So don't just start thinking about how everything has to be organic, everything has to be this one way, because you're going to get pigeonholed into that. Because, for example, with garments, we can talk about organic cotton all day, but guess what? There's also shirts out there that are made from fabric scraps that they weave back into thread, which they sew back into shirts, right? That's not organic cotton. That's just recycling, right? Yeah. And there's numerous examples about that, right? So I want you to think about how you can source things locally, how you can make better decisions about things, how you can talk to your customers about what their needs or interests are, right? And just start there. Start with what you have, right?
Marshall, there's a couple of things we've kind of, so we've looked at, we know that through process control, through getting down in the dirt, you get to look at how you consume less energy, because you are observing your process, you're considering, the dwell times in the dryer, and all those considerations will produce the benefits. Just that degree of scrutinizing within the process. Couple of things that are interesting to me. One is labor standards. I think we all live in a world of global supply chain. We all know that if we head out to Bangladesh, Southeast Asia, that we are likely to be able to see lower cost manufacturing for goods, but we're not necessarily likely to see lower cost manufacturing with fair pay for those people. So in terms of the kind of questioning around transparency, and as consumers desire more awareness of where their garments are being decorated and the kind of culture that they're coming from, what's your view on transparency and labor standards as another area?
Well, I think they're absolutely needed and necessary. And if you look at what's going on with the garment industry, we can talk t-shirts, but it's also fashion, right? Fast fashion and all that stuff.
Yeah.
We're the second worst industry behind the oil industry. I'm like, we're horrible, right? We need to clean up our act. We need to do some things better. We need to make some decisions and have rules and regulations. And here, my thinking on it is the fact that because everything is driven financially, sometimes we're not going to make really good decisions because it's driven financially. And what we need and what we should be welcoming is better standards for things, for labor, for environmental concerns and that type of stuff. And that, because we can't police ourselves, right? We should be open to this stuff, because once we have it, then everybody's playing by the same rules. And that way that drives the change that we want. That's my view on it. It could be controversial, right? Because it's like you're going to say, hey, I need something cheap because that's what my client wants, right? I completely understand that. But if everybody played by the same rules, then that would go away.
And ironically, I think as well, if you look at labor cost and manufacturing, if you even make small concessions to employee improvement, actually the resulting productivity gains that you can achieve can be significant. So again, it kind of points to the drilling into the detail, involve people in the decision-making process, and get on the journey together.
Yeah, well, there are international standards, and certifications that exist right now, right? You like these should be followed. These should be championed in the supply chain. Name your flavor. Okay. We don't need to get into all that now, but it's like one of these things where I really think that to make a difference, we should be adopting these as the standard for what we're demanding in the industry. And that way we make a difference. And it's the people who I think are at the greedy folks, we'll just call them, right?
Yeah.
That I think they drive a lot of the problems. Okay. I'm all for making money, right, and being profitable, and I totally get that. But at the same time, there's a giant problem and cost at the other end that's driving a lot of the problems that we have. And if we don't police ourselves as an industry, guess what? Somebody's going to police it for us, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like if you don't, it's kind of like your own body, right? If you don't take care of yourself, your doctor will take care of it for you, right? So there's a reason why you should be doing the things the right way, right? So, it's no different with what we're talking about here.
And I think in terms of transparency, there are, we're starting to see new technology like RFID tracking and there's some interesting things going on, aren't there, with respect to whether we end up knowing who our shirt was sewn by or who it was printed by. And I wonder, just looking forward at a younger cohort of consumers who are in, increasing in their buying power, how they'll view the greedy, as we should call them, who think that actually their margin is fundamentally the most important priority. I believe that we're seeing signs in my role at FESPA, I'm involved in a lot of different market segments. So from graphics, out of home, textile, clothing, interior decor, and there is a real groundswell that brands are demanding change, and the brands that are demanding change are only demanding change because they're driven by consumers who want a different set of options. But
that's the big myth, is that nobody cares about this stuff, right? And I can tell you that they absolutely do. And as as our consumer base skews younger and younger and younger, one of the things that they're really interested in is things that are done right. They're interested in story. They're interested in the stories that they tell. So I bought this shirt, and here's a list of it came from this, and here's who made it, and it was made from a scrap cotton that was woven back into whatever, or it's recycled organic cotton, or it's made from 8 water bottles that were, there's polyester content that's, they're interested in this stuff, right? And don't think that they're not, but the garment, that's half the story here. Okay. What's the other half is how we're decorating it. So there's a huge reason why the print on demand sector is growing astronomically. And that's because people are no longer interested in buying 500 t-shirts for an event when I can buy 397 because that's the attendees that I have. So why do I need to order one more shirt than I actually need? Because I can be doing things print on demand style, where I'm lining up the production for the actual user. And this is being done digitally. This is being done with transfers. This is being done with other tools, right?
Yeah.
So if we start thinking about how we're doing things, and of course, there's still going to be mass production, but I think in a lot of use cases, how people are thinking now is incorporating technology with the ordering platform, with print on demand technology, with just in time everything. You're seeing a lot of stuff. Also, think about how we can do hyper personalization And just look, there's a million things we can go into and probably don't have time for. But, you know, sustainability is all about making things and doing things correctly. So why are we over printing things, right? And that's the big problem we have with fast fashion, is because a lot of that stuff ends up in the landfill because they're overproducing, right? That's the whole fashion side of stuff, not really about what I do, which is all about printing for a customer, right?
Yeah.
But you know, the biggest problem we have is, you know, I think in I don't know globally, but in the US, right, 85 pounds per person of apparel goes to landfill. That's like the stat. Right?
Yeah, I think the UK. I think UK is like number 2. I think we're 23 kilos
Yeah,
in the UK, and yeah,
right.
it's kind of shocking
It's
how quickly we're taking something from raw material and making it into landfill. And I think one of the things that we were discussing earlier was about avoiding landfill, and I think that
yeah,
certainly the kind of the trend towards things that will perform well for longer. You know, I think the reduce, reuse, recycle is intended to be in that order. So
yep.
I think, and I'm really interested in your view that the scale of production volume isn't necessarily where the goal is. The goal is to look at margin and what can we do to make durable products that might have a longer life but can command a higher margin.
Sure.
Where are
Right.
you at on that topic?
Well, I totally believe that we should be repurposing things, right? Or we should be questioning, do we really need this thing to be made? Right. So I have some friends here in the US, and they coined this term called brand fill, right? So we're making things that are just going to be that go straight to landfill, right? You see this a lot of trade shows where they're printing, I don't know, a stress ball. They're printing a T-shirt. They're printing something, and that gets one use and then it's discarded, right? So the question is, should we ever do that ever?
Well,
And so
yeah, I
that
think
doesn't help these businesses that are all made to be making these things. Okay. Again, if we don't police this ourselves, somebody's going to police it for us. Okay.
and
So it's like,
I think the promotional products field that you're speaking of, and I think it's very true that we have been used to going to a conference, going to a trade fair, having a goodie bag with some things in it, but then you kind of open the goodie bag and you look at the sum of its parts and you think, I've kind of got a pen I like. I've got, you know, actually the items. Asking yourself the question when you're giving an incentive giveaway is, how useful is it to my client? So one of the things that I got from I think it was Focus in the last FESPA, was this great kind of screen cleaning kit, and you know, I use it regularly, and it feels worthwhile. Or the things I don't want is a really cheap crappy pen, because I'm old enough to have a pen I like,
yeah,
and
right.
I have no use for it. So I suppose there'll be a natural pivoting and a filtering of these
Yeah,
things, because people will say no thank you, and
right.
then as they say no thank you, the sector will adapt to a new range of products that maybe have better
Right.
credentials, and I'm sure we will use less, and what we use will be better, because that's just the way things are heading.
Yeah.
Uh,
So I think the thing here, Graham, to think about here is there's a million different use cases so somebody does stuff with athletics, somebody does stuff with promo, somebody does stuff with retail. There's all these different use cases where my customers and blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
We all use things differently. They all have different wants and needs and challenges and we're trying to find the best solution for them. And so that's why I always go back to the word why. Right? Why are we doing it the way we do it now? Is there a better way? Is there something that we can be doing that's driving the conversation that feels right? That's in alignment with what the customer's problems are or whatever, right? So for your viewers out there, right? So start really examining and don't take things that is a face value on the way we've always done it. The challenge is to ask yourself, is there a better way, a better platform, a better process, a better substrate, a better something out there? And you don't have to know the answers. You just have to ask the right questions. Finding the answers is the fun part. Right. And let me also, I'll throw this out here, is if you are leading that conversation, this is a market differentiator for you, which is all about sales, right? So if you're leading the discussion, if you're leading your corner of the industry, if you're leading what's going on, everybody's following you, that makes you the number one person, number one company or organization or whatever. And careers are made with this stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. So everybody can be a follower, but there's only a couple leaders. And if you start thinking about the companies and their brands that are making significant change, they are not waiting, they're doing stuff. So think to yourself, how in your corner of the world, what can you be doing to make a difference? And it doesn't have to be gigantically huge. It can just be about making small changes, but all the time. That's sustainability. That's the essence of it, is just not being happy, doing continuous improvement where everybody in the organization contributes, and we have discussions about things that matter, and we celebrate our success, we celebrate our failures. Do you know what the word fail is an acronym? Do you know what it stands for?
I know. I'm gonna let you tell us.
It stands for first attempt in learning.
Okay.
Right. So we fail at a lot of things. Okay. And and a lot of times we don't start because we're scared of that part. Right. If you just think about, hey, I'm just learning, it's okay to make that mistake. This is how sustainability programs get built, is because we're not afraid of failure and we're just going to try some stuff and just see what happens. Because we don't know where we're going. And the process and that journey is what's fun and intriguing. And I'll tell you, from somebody who's done it for real on a massive scale, this is the fun part. This is the juicy part. This is the reason why years later
that's what keeps us in it
with such fervor. It's because it's so fun, right?
And actually, it does. I've just been doing some proofing work and looking at the delta E of proofers, and starting off with a kind of a color management profile that's pretty good, but the delta E limits weren't particularly fine, and I ran it through 3 or 4 iterations to tune the profile, and I'm kind of now getting down to a delta E of 0.3, and you're right, I really enjoy getting to that point of success where your confidence can lift exponentially because for a fact that what you're doing is good for your client.
This reminds me of a really good fact. If you want to start a really robust sustainability program for your company, the number one place to start is not in your production. It's with your sales and order entry, and it's dictating those decisions early in the process. Because if you think about how many mistakes, how much rework, the effort and the labor and all that stuff that is wasted because some sales guy didn't put a piece of information in a form field.
Yeah.
Or whatever, or we don't talk about color the way that we need to, right? Or we're a lot of times the sales team is scared to ask that client another question because they might tell us to go, we're going to go with somebody else, right? Because you're challenging us on this stuff, right? So I think
I think it's a great point on the kind of the getting your proofing, soft proofing right at the front end before you even commit any ink to any substrate.
Yeah,
is make sure your customer is aware through soft proof what the likely outcome will be from their artwork. I have, as we all do, many stories of working in garment decoration where people have sent me fluorescent colors built in Photoshop with completely mad gamuts that are utterly impossible to reproduce in garment decoration, and you can say so that you can kind of dismiss that and say, oh well, I'll print it and ship it. But when you ship it, if you haven't told them that it's going to be crushingly disappointing for them, then you're the one that's likely to carry the in terms of them not paying. So yeah, I think you're right. We have sadly, I think we're coming to the end of our time today, Marshall. You and I could we could carry on this for a good many evenings, and I hope we have those opportunities again. But I think your final words, I think you have a final word to encourage people towards best practice. What will be your closing remark?
My final word. It's only one word, Graham. It's the word start.
Okay.
You just got to start. Like, what are you waiting on? You're gonna. So, like, if you're not doing something right now, are you going to wait till somebody forces you to start? Your customers or the government or your supply chain or whatever, right? Why are you waiting? Right? So just begin, and you don't have to have all the answers, but what you need to be doing is you need to be thinking about what you're doing and why we're doing whatever your process is right now, right? And just go, hey, is this the best that we can do? Aren't we professionals? Aren't we supposed to be better than this? Are there people out there that are really doing a better job of this than we are? More than likely the answer is yes, right? What are they doing? Let's go find out. Let's go have a conversation. And I tell you, a lot of folks out there, believe it or not, will actually share what they're doing. You just got to ask the question, right? This is why trade shows are so much fun, because you can go and there's always a queue at the bar, right? Hey, what do you do? What's your thing? Start talking about this stuff, and you'll discover the answer that you're searching for. Usually is in line for coffee or a beer.
Yeah. Well, and on which note, it kind of brings me neatly on to let our guests today know that Sustainability Spotlight will carry over into a physical environment at a stand during the Global Print Expo on the 23rd to 26th of May in Messe Munich in Germany. We'd love to welcome you there. We're going to feature more advice on sustainability. We're going to have innovative materials that are just kind of starting to come to market, and to show where the possibilities exist. So there will be more online content coming, with more interviews, podcasts, blogs, and I know Marshall's going to contribute a bit more to that. So I'd just like to say a big thank you for joining, and Marshall, thank you so much for your time. It's been a fun one. So thank you, and I will look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Graham. I really appreciate it. Good luck, everyone.
All right. Cheers for now. Thank you.